Welcome back, welcome aboard, all aboard. I sound kind of drug out. I just spent the last week knocked down. Sorry there was no vids. These colds are not letting go, and sometimes what comes in with them is just as bad. Don't know what I've been fighting, but it's ugly. So, today's little tutorial session is that sometimes you have to have competitors in order to survive. And one of the best competitors to have is a guy like Railbed Leasing Corp. Because Railbed Leasing Corp, they build and maintain a road. You're not paying for the full road. You're just paying for each train. It's like this is a 21 S&S train that runs down that line. But he's making it. So how's he doing? Well, let's take a peek at him. He's making $27,000 a year last year just on road tolls. Yes, he has some sections where he has his rails and does just his stuff on it. Right here. This is his company. So his trains are now running on this section. And it lets him make money in various ways. So each of these feeding into this great power plant idea up here was a great little map to play. But the only way I could figure to take and do it was I needed somebody else to build some of the roads. And at first I thought, well, Railbed Leasing Corp, just do it. All the railroads back in the 1860s, when the big railroad surge, 1850s, 1860s, was doing, and that was they'd fund another railroad to take the risky part. And strangely enough, sometimes it was that funded railroad that survived, and the parent that butted off of or funded it, planted the seed, got gobbled back up. And some of that was planned. We got multiple railroads, we can gobble back up our stock, and, make it look like, our losses weren't our losses. But it bit them in the end. Until Harriman came along, and even Harriman had to scam it a bit, I bet. Or at least the first runs. But as you can see, you got a lot of these roads leading in are all owned by Railbed Leasing. Not everything is. Over here, yes, this stretch is. But you get down far enough, and suddenly this is public property because it ties into more public property, where it ties into, there's a point down here where, if I remember right, it goes to 21 S&S owned its own light rail. Yeah, right about there. And that was basically 21 S&S saying, hey, I want some of this moolah, so that I can be the big king thing. And yes, I come up with some horrible names. And Terrible Teamsters was terrific Teamsters until I saw how their performance was, and it was like, you guys are terrible Teamsters. Not saying anything bad about the Teamsters Union or anybody who used to be a true Teamster back in the days when it meant that you were a mule driver running a mule team or a horse team or an ox team. So this here's kind of what the maps can look like. You can still get that chaos. Some of them are not. I have another option to show you here. And let's go take a look at it. I have these written down so I can find them faster. This is one. This is, again, Railbed Leasing has his track laid. He's serving through that, and as you can see, he's going to be able to pick up the oil traffic from this, going to, hopefully, once I figure out where that's at, let's find out where that's at. Hi. No, he won't be able to pick that up. But, you know, over here, hey, Railbed had started building that out. So I would not be surprised if in the somewhat future, there's somebody, Pharma Feeder, had their own lines. So it might be that Pharma Feeder was tying up the lines. It could also be that at some point I bring in Railbed and let them have the passenger line through here, and then they allow everybody else on as cargoes that have to pull over for them. That would be an interesting line to try to build. And I have thought about coming back to this map for that. But this is one of the tutorials where you can see that cooperative play by allowing those other guys onto your lines. And how do you do that? Well, that's a signaling issue. That's what this signal here is for. This is the gate excluding other player. And you know what? Let's do something here. Let's see if I can get it to open. It's not opening the way I want it to. Hi. Gates. Signals. It doesn't take and give you the breakdown on it. Rail tunnel. Not everything gets a full information. Yeah, it doesn't give you that information. But the gate has a function. Let's see if I can find one of my gates. I don't think I have one on this map. Yeah, I don't think I do. So we're going to drop one. So what we'll do is we will build a gate. This one hadn't progressed enough. Oh, we're not. What do you mean we can't build a gate there? Are we not on? We might not be on him. Yeah, we're on 21. Okay. Now we can build the gate. Hadn't checked. So right there, there's our gate. Now if we go to this and click on it, which companies will you allow on? So by going from white to dark, you could tell 21, they could use it. I always tell public service they can use it. But that means that anybody can technically use. Public service doesn't really have trains, so all that lets it happen is a crossover spot. You can tell Pharma Feeder they can go through. You could tell Tricky Transport they could go through. Each of these is things that you can think about. And it's, you know, one more way where if you're playing a cooperative game or even a competitive game, maybe there's a point where you got to say, you know what? I'll put in this gate, you put in this gate, we get the public service to build the connection between the two. And that does require happening. As you'll see, none of these connect up. And if I were to try to connect to his, it says I can't. But if I switch to Public Service Commission, the Public Service Commission can come over here and do that. And that's when you would need this gate. Makes sense. Now, of course, you would also have to take and make your station platform no longer the way it is, which is that you'd have to go with make way public. That would allow them to use your platform. Now, here's the fun part. There's a fee. There is a fee that you gather for that. And if I can remember where it is, toll running cost, so 5% way cost. So if you're using like an electric line, you come on, you're using my electricity, I get to charge you more. If you come on just using my roads or rails, that's where it gets fun. Little bitty things. It may cost, and you may make some money, it may cost you some money to do it, but at the same time, you get to cut down the other guys, and then you get to fight each other out. Something to think about, guys. Short little video. I don't know how much of Max Chaos I'll be able to do today. I know it will be a low energy event for me. Sorry, when you get older, colds do tend to knock you down a lot harder, guys. So those of you young out there, I suggest you enjoy being able to take and get a cold, knock it off, and a day later say, it's beat. I remember being able to do that too. I also remember the time when I had a very nasty variant of the cold that was putting everybody else up for 5 days, and all I got was the sniffles. So, have fun. Thanks for watching. Have a much better day than I'm having, which doesn't take much.